right, everybody. Hey, guess what? It is Sunday, February 24th, 2019. It is currently 5:02 Pacific Standard Time, p.m. And, well, we decided to start a little bit lighter today. And, well, here's something for you to all laugh about.
Imagine, if you will, a world where they think animals can read and comprehend signs.
Missing is all that's going on there. Now, Donna, you got quite the vent today. It sounds like what's going on with you.
Well, I wanted to voice my opinion on something that's been bothering me for a really long time.
Okay.
I tried writing the newspaper and contacting TV stations, but nobody seems to want to stay with this. So that's why I'm calling you guys. Okay.
What's the issue?
Well, over the past few years, I've been involved in 3 separate car accidents involving deer.
Mm-hmm.
With the population and everything. Each of these incidents, they've occurred shortly after I saw a deer crossing sign on the highway. Well, my frustration is that Minnesota and North Dakota Departments of Transportation would allow these deer crossings to be in such high traffic areas. I mean, I've even seen them on the interstate. Why are we encouraging deer to cross at the interstate? I don't get it. That's such a high traffic area. I mean,
I
understand that deer are wild animals and they need to travel across the streets occasionally to survive. And, of course, to find food. But it seems to me that so irresponsible of us to allow these deer crossings to be in areas where these deer are so likely to be struck by oncoming traffic. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
I
mean, it's just. I mean, you think they would put deer crossings maybe in smaller towns, maybe during at a school crossing. It would be a safer place for them to cross.
Wait.
Put the deer crossing sign.
Deer crossings aren't telling deer that it's safe to cross there. It's just more of like an alert for drivers so they know it's like a high deer population.
The government put the deer crossings there. They can direct the deer population anywhere they want to by moving that deer crossing sign. I mean, why in the world would they place it on the highway or the interstate? I mean, God, there are so many other places I can think of than putting the deer crossing signs on busy highways and interstates.
You seem to be under the misunderstanding that the deer are somehow attracted to the deer crossing sign.
Well, yeah, the deer crossing sign is there to allow the deer to know that's where they need to cross.
Right. And all these car accidents you had involved a deer after you'd saw a deer crossing sign.
Exactly. I mean, I'm trying to watch out for the deer, but I mean, speed limit's 55, 65. How am I supposed to, you can't brake really quick if if the deer just is crossing in that deer crossing area.
So you'd like to see these signs move somewhere safer?
Right. If we can move them, don't put deer crossing signs on the interstate or freeways. Put them in lower traffic areas. Somewhere where the speed limit's a lot slower. Maybe small towns. I don't know. I think school crossings is a good idea.
Well, listen, we will. You say you've tried to contact quite a few people about this.
Right, yeah. I wrote at least 3 or 4 letters, and
we will spread the word, okay? We will try to kind of help you raise some awareness for this issue, okay?
Oh, thank you. We need to move those deer crossing signs.
We appreciate your comment this morning.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
And I'm sorry to say, this is a misconception that most of those who don't actually research or even think for themselves actually see. Now, this lady actually did come back later, eventually. I mean, I think it's weeks later, after she got teased so much, and basically it was like, oh, I did not realize it was that big of an issue, and I did not realize what it was actually saying, and she tried to basically cover her own backside, but that wasn't going to happen. She pretty much showed how stupid Democrats are. So, Ed, why don't you say something? I'll unmute you now.
Yeah, thank you. And this is the point we bring up, because this is what we show and prove: the lack of education, lack of knowledge, lack of intelligence. Because people get dumbed down. Come on, you're trying to tell me this woman? We get so dumbed down we can't think with an open, clear mind. We can't logically think. We can't logically do things. And that's the one thing that people need to start coming together on these things and realizing these things of how it works. Because this lady is sitting there on a TV show, or on a talk show, telling everybody basically how ignorant she is. And it's not due because of her own being, more than likely. It's due because of the circumstances around her. So these are the things that we have to look at, and the problems that we are involved in and that we inquire about. I mean, it's like when I deal with people and you try to explain the system to them, you know, and no offense to religious people, but when people try to go off on the point going, God this and God that, and I'm going, no, God has nothing to do with what you're going through. All right, what you're going through is you got some people that are out there writing administrative rules that are telling you how to live by. Okay, and we've lost common sense in a basic sense when you think about it, because most people don't think with a common sense. They don't sit there and analyze things. They don't sit there and talk with people and come up with a rational decision before they react. Because most of us react before we think. I mean, come on, you got to admit to that. You react before you think. We all do. And that's the thing. And then sometimes we come back after we think, like this lady, realizes, holy shit, yeah, the guy made a point. You know, we put up deer crossing signs to warn us that this is a highly populated area where the deer or elk or rabbits or whatever is crossing the roads. That's why we put up what are called pedestrian signs, because people might be crossing in that area because it's a high-traveled road. And so that's the point that we need to come back to, is common sense, common thinking, common reality. Because it's like when you get into this, I mean, I've been talking to people this week, and it's been interesting with some of the conversations I've had with individuals. Because, and then you get into the point going, and everybody keeps talking to themselves, this person, that person, why person? What is a person? A person is a non-existent being. It doesn't exist. It's a fantasy that we created. That's like fairy tale, the tooth fairy, Christmas, all of it's fairy tale, doesn't exist. It's all, until we get old enough, and then we start realizing, 90% of the lies that we're told when we grow up. And that's stepping out of the movie, watching the production, and paying attention to these things. That's the one thing, like I suggest to people, when you're putting your affidavits together or your letters, write in the thing where the clerk's law is, the clerk's structure if they don't do their job. Why would I suggest that to people? Because that way, if the clerk doesn't do her job, you've already put her on notice when you write your notice, because this is a public notice or notice of whatever. But it's a notice, so you're already putting it on notice when you put it. So you put that structure in. So if the clerk does not do her or his job, now you can go criminally after them. See, that is the point that you need to comprehend how it works. Because I mean, I deal with a lot of people out there, like some of the other people that we work with and listen to, and we work with each other and do these things. We work with we bounce things around. That's like the thing is like, and I'll get into the argument of abortion. What the hell is your opinion of abortion? What the hell do you have a right to tell another woman how to live? There is no right that gives you that. And don't give me, oh God, in the religious Bible. Because nobody has the right to tell somebody else how to live, because they have their own conscience. And when you have your own conscience, what you have done, And maybe that some people have to lash out on people in these circumstances because that's the only way they can deal with their own conscience or their own screw-ups, their own things they have done. So these are things that when it comes down to it, is learning the circumstances around thee or thy or whatever you want to call it, how you want to do it. See, we can go back to proper English talking. We can go back to religious talking of the Bible and how it's supposed to, English and word or talking are supposed to be done. See, this is the one thing, is that when you put these things together, life is simple. But we make life difficult. It's like, I'm working on a couple other deals on a couple bills coming up. And I'm bringing this up to people going, holy mackerel, these guys are writing more administrative rules, and people are not standing up to these guys. That is the point. Nobody's standing up to these people. Are you? No, you're allowing them to get away with what they get away with. Now, I did put up a structure, and I'm going to get to that here in a minute. This is what, I've been having conversations with people on Social Security. Okay, and this is the one thing that gets to me about these things. It is one of those things that when you bring these things too late, and you bring them forward. That's why they wrote it, we quote it. They wrote administrative rules. They have to go by the Constitution and the structure for lawful bloodline natives. That's why when we get into the 14th and the 13th and the 16th Amendment, especially the 17th Amendment, remember, everything after the 13th Amendment was never ratified. It was not lawful. And once you comprehend that reality, then you start looking at the rest of the structure. Okay? And that's where it really comes down to, is that you have to look at the rest of the structure of what's going on around you. Too many people are tunnel vision. Okay? Too many people are whatever they want to believe in. That's their right. Not their choice. It's their decision, because a decision means you have to be responsible. And once you realize that you are responsible for everything that goes on, that is the one thing that you want to start paying attention to, the real truth of these things. And you got to pay attention to who's out there on these talk shows giving you suggestions and advice. And that's the one thing that you have to take the credit for, or you have to back off and let somebody else to take the credit or the right to. Because it's like I got a lot of people I deal with, and everybody goes, I want to be the king or queen of this paperwork. I want to be the structure of this or that. And I have this right. Well, okay, you have a right to it. But when it comes down to it, who gives a shit? That is the one thing when it comes down to it. You got to think about the truth here. There's a lot of groups out there that I'm not going to go out there and start going out and playing that. And no, I'm not afraid to be slandered or be having somebody going after me for slandering them for their own talk show. No, I want people to start paying attention and research, because it's up to you to do this. Because either you lie to your children or you don't. It is that simple. Okay, and when it comes down to it, most parents lie to their children. But people are getting more and more to the point where, the white lies are, it's like I grew up, with people around me, telling white lies is okay, Ed. That's acceptable. And I used to think when people would tell me this stuff, I would go, what the hell? Oh, so lying, you call it a white lie. Or, it's like, I've got other people I know of different other races or colors. And you can't use race because in the Constitution there's no such thing as race. All right, wake up and stop being little bitches and little bastards. Because when it comes down to it, your color has no difference. We are equal, men and women. There is no color differentiation of anything. And if you do that color crap, you're the moron. Yes, and I will call you a moron to your face doing that, because the Constitution, there's no color. There's no discrimination, period. You're a man or woman. If you decide you want to go off in some other way that you want to call yourself, all right, we can give that. You might not get the respect you want, because nobody else will respect you for it. And don't whine to the world and goes, oh, I have to have this respect and honor. No, you do not. That's like these public people out there putting their agenda out and their belief. I mean, we've got a couple of Muslim people in office now. And now people are saying when they're trying to put Sharia law in the reality of their system. And they've already done it in some counties in 48 states. But people are stupid. Oh, they have religion, they have rights. No, morons. Read what our Marines were put together. Read why the Navy was put together. Learn the true structure of what, why, and how. So when we get off this is like these guys out there in talk shows saying all the stuff that they do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been on different talk shows, went out and proved that they basically misguide the general public. Because they do that because of own personal and financial gains. And you got to remember, these people are for personal and financial gains. They don't give a damn about you. And once you accept that reality, then you can start changing things. Things in life can change. But until that reality is accepted, nothing can change. So we bring ourselves into a quasi of confusion. And so most of us live in a quasi of confusion because we're taught this. We are brought up in this. It's like everybody goes, oh, well, we have to give our Social Security number. We have to give this information and that information out. No, you do not. Now, I did send a deal out, and I think we'll get it up. I'm going to resend it. But I want people to make sure that people are comprehending that Dexter Johnson is legislative counsel for the state of Oregon Senators and House of Representatives. Now, I'm going to be passing this out again on my wall, on our Facebook pages. And by the way, we did get some business cards made up. We got a stamp, and we'll have to get that stamped and get a picture of that stamp put up on the website, so that way you can actually see what it is. And if you're interested, it is a spendy stamp. When it really comes down to it, we can discuss that at the time. But it is expensive. But once you get this stamp that what I put together, you got everything in the thing, and so we'll get it up on the website. We'll get an ink stamp done up and get it on the website on the front page so people can see it and what I'm talking about. Because now you got a stamp. It is big, it is bulky, but when you use this stamp, when you're doing any and all lawful or legal documents, it covers you both ways. And it has everything so that way you autograph it, and you have to put your seal. Your seal's your thumbprint. So, but let me get into Dexter Johnson's own statement dealing with the police routinely enforce codes against non-business automobile users. I want you to comprehend this point. Non-business automobile users. So, in other words, the police departments are rape, robbing, and pillaging under democracy for the financial funding for the senators and House of Representatives to go party, to travel around the country on this income that they get from the judges and the police departments and their retirement funds to go party. Hey, that's a reality, man. These guys take vacations on this shit. They actually have parties. They spend thousands of dollars on these parties that they laugh all the way around your back because they know that you're stupid enough to go along with this shit. So the thing is that when he came out and said this and dealing with, let's say, even ORS, Oregon Revised Statute 803.030, exemptions for title requirement. Oh, so you don't need a title for your covered wagon. You don't need a driver's license and insurance. You don't need vehicle title and registration. See, these are Oregon State Revised Statute administrative rules. Now, what they have been doing is starting revising this and they're dropping things out. And this is one thing I've been trying to explain to people. When you read some of this stuff, they're dropping different words out of it. So that way you think you have to get it. And because they're dropping commercial out of it, they're just leaving driver, not commercial driver. So this is how they're getting away with going around it. That's why you have to save the stuff when it's out there to you so you go to the original. You definitely want to save the original paperwork on a lot of these affidavits that are out there in the structure so you can go back and revamp them, relook at them, and use what, why, and how they came up with their direction and what they wrote it in that direction. And common sense, you can pretty much read it and figure it out, or talk to somebody you trust and bounce it around through people, to come up with a rational solution, or even, on this education show, we could always do that around, talk about these things. But remember, commercial license, that follows under 18 USC 2721B, Section 9. See, and the circumstances dealing with this stuff is it's all commercial profit. And then you'll say, well, everybody has a right the government has the right to do commercial, interstate commercial. Yes, they have the right to interstate commercial. But if you filed your paperwork to prove you're not a commercial identity, you filed to protect yourself. That's how they get away with it. And also, too, don't forget Article 4, Clause 4. The Republican form of government. I had to been corrected, and damn, I hate when that happens, because I've always been saying Republic form of government, and now I've got to do it under this union, as it says. United States shall be granted every state in this union a republic form of government, Republican form of government. Okay, I just have a deal with that with the Democratic and Republican because those were parties that came in after the Civil War. That part comes from the original part of the Constitution, and that was written, and the other part comes in after the Civil War. So it's interesting when you read it and, step back and watch how these things work. It is an interesting circumstance, And that's what we want. We want the Republican form of government, or Republic form of government. In other words, if there's no injured party, there's no liability. That's the major point right there. And your government defines of the word person. When it comes to a person, it's a legal fiction. Inanimate object is what a paper man or woman is. Could be considered a child. And don't forget, artificials, identities, cannot take an oath. So anybody who is not honoring their oath, they're public servants, who does not honor their oath of servitude, who does a structure going to the wrongful education of the legal system. Okay, you want to put the stuff in writing, all this stuff. So you want to make sure it's there. So that is the point. When it's there, it's there. So that is the one thing that when these things come to light, you want them to come to light. So it's like the other point, 28 USC, Code 951, oath of office of clerk and deputies. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that supposed to be deputies? Isn't the word deputies the same thing as a deputy to a sheriff? Now, we know that, and we have the court cases on it that is on the website, okay, and it's very simple. It is so simple. The sheriff has no authority so long as that he has a department. And that was done in a New Hampshire court case, Connecticut court case. And so we do have that up on new.org and trackers. And this is the one thing that it is to be educated on. And here's the other point, was it Chevrolet versus Rhodes, 416 U.S. 323.945.CT. 1683, 1687, 1974. The judge is the state officer. The judge acts not as a judge, but a private individual in his person. When a judge acts as a trespasser of law, when a judge does not follow the law, and remember, the law is the Constitution first, not statute, codes, and administrative rule. Judge loses subject matter jurisdiction, and a judge orders are not valuable. They're not. They have no meaning to them. They're void, and no legal cost, no anything else can be applied on it. The United States Supreme Court, when an officer under the state law is a manner violative of the federal Constitution, he comes into conflict with the superior order authority of the Constitution. So remember, the Constitution is the law of the land, not statute, codes, and administrative rules. So it's like trade and commerce, Barter is due. Now you got other people that I've watched, some people that have had stuff where now they're saying, well, commerce is, a form of trade, and trade is a form of commerce. No, that was all brought into later in time, because trade was always done that, hey, I got to build the roof on my house, and then when you need a fence next year, I'll help you with your fence. Neighbors and people used to work and trade and aid each other. And that's the one thing that we have forgot in this country. Now, I want to get back into Social Security because I picked up some other really good information on Social Security that I wanted to bring out tonight. Because when you dig into Social Security, you're using your Social Security number. And then you realize that, oh, shit, you can't use your Social Security number because that's a crime. Because your Social Security number is used only for you, nobody else. Okay? It's not for a job. And even if you give it to an employer when they ask you, that's a federal crime. And then that's what I want to try to get here, because I did some research on it, and I gave it to the producer, and we'll have that up in the probably Social Security or whatever. I'm not sure what area we'll have it, but we'll get that announced next week. But you want to make sure with your Social Security, there are even forms that you can fill out for your employer that exempt you by Social Security Act. And that's the one thing that I want to bring to people's attention, that there are deals and people say, well, you can't be hired because you don't have Social Security or you don't do that. We got a video that we have up there on our website that a gentleman did a wonderful structure going through the circumstances, how to open up a bank account without Social Security or even photo ID. And they have to do it because, remember, when banks were running, people didn't have photo IDs. People really didn't have photo IDs just until the recent years. See, that's the one thing that people didn't have photo ID. So, I mean, that's the point that you have to look. It's like people say, well, if I don't have photo ID, I can't go get anything notarized. That is not a true statement. So long as you got 3, and people say 2, no, notarization, you want 3 or more witnesses that you go in that can verify who you are. And that's what you want to know, who you are. See, and that's the one thing that they cannot deny you an account at all. I mean, and people say, well, they're doing this. They're getting away with it. Yes, they're getting away with it because not everybody is in line when these people violate something. Not everybody's in line filing criminal charges on them, are they? No. See, if these people had criminal charges on them, there wouldn't be people wouldn't be getting away with the stuff they're getting away with on us. Literally, there is no way they would be able to do the circumstances they're getting away with. And I thought I had that in front of my face, but apparently I don't. Under Social Security that I want to bring up to people's attention. If I don't get it tonight, I will get it next week. But also, too, don't forget, people, to take a look at Public Law 105-89, 105th Congress. Okay? This is to promote adoption of children in foster care. And so this is what I try to get people to comprehend. Read this stuff. You know, all these people get their children taken. They want to bitch, whine, and moan and groan, but they don't want to sit there and do anything to get that child back. See, this is the thing that there's very few people that are actually standing. I mean, and, you know, it's like some people I was just dealing with, the progress was being made, and then all of a sudden they wanted an attorney. They got talked into by another group to go get an attorney. So, and I can see what's going to happen with the attorney, but like I told them, when you're going to spend, they were already spending $10,000 on an attorney, and they were looking at spending another $15,000. And it's like, learn the law, learn the structure, learn what, why, and how, what they can get away with, what they cannot get away with. And remember, they're doing this with the kids because if the kids have learning disability, they're going after disability funding. This is a reality. These things do happen. So that is the point that goes on with these things. So when it comes down to these circumstances that we're living, it makes you really frustrated because you watch these people, even like the Bundys who've gone through things. You're watching these men and women going through this structure, and you try to give them the best suggestions you can or advice that some would say, but I don't like giving people advice because I don't want to be liable for them. Because if I'm giving them advice, usually that's something that is a commercial paid structure. I mean, you're supposed to be able to have conversations and talk to one another and to have respect for one another. And that's the one thing that we do have, we're getting up, that I got dealing with 1308, formerly 12007 of the Universal Commercial Code. And the structure, when you actually read it, goes with that thing was originally written that the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, and the Creator rights of man, earth, and the rights for man. And so this is in writing. This isn't a court case. And this part of this court case, when you actually start reading these things a little more in depth, that was in Mulberry versus Madison, that statement. So it is interesting when you read these things, you start getting more in depth in this. You start realizing the education you're giving yourself and your children. You think it might not make a damn bit of difference right now, but it really, truly is making a difference. And that's the one thing that we cannot forget and lose that fact. And when we've got these administrative rules that we are going by, that they're shoving down our face by gunpoint, we have to file the criminal reports. And that is not just with the locals. See, that is the point. You're not doing it for the locals. And you've got to realize that. That's like, the use of bonds and securities and learning how these things work. And people say, why should I learn how to work? Why should I do this? Why should I? Well, it's not supposed to be about you. It's supposed to be about we. We the people. So, it comes down to these things that people lose their reality, lose their strength, and we need to start picking that up. And we can, folks. It's very simple. It is so simple of what's going on. But people around us, and we make it difficult. And like I said, do pay attention to what's going on around you in the groups that are coming around you. The knowledge that people are giving out, research it, look it up. And the other point on the rights of transportation is Representative Dick Marble. I recommend that everybody look up his name when you do it. Send him a thank you letter or a note. This is legislative senator dealing with his own bill that he has, HB 507. This is restoring the right to basically your right to travel. He's been doing that. He's been fighting it in court himself for the last couple of years. He's got it where a judge told him off in court. Now, I'm the judge. You do what I tell you. And he's like, I'm the legislator. I'm above you. And the judge is like, it doesn't matter who you are. I'm the judge. See, that's where we've lost reality, where we've lost the chain of command, where people don't have the respect and honor to one another. And so I got to find the other Social Security stuff. I wanted to bring that up a little bit tonight, but I haven't got to that point yet. But it is one of those things that we're living right now today, with the circumstances of lack of education, standing up. And when we got these senators and representatives that are standing up for you and your voice, stand up behind them. Don't get in this ridiculous arguments about religion or whose baby it is. That's something that let the man and woman live with their problems, their circumstances. The main focus we have to make sure is that our rights are enforced. Our rights. I can't go enforce your rights. That's why we supposedly have public servants that are supposed to be opening their minds and enforcing our rights so we're not suffering through these things. We've already got these things that are already publicly nailed out there, publicly in the best interest. And that is the point that bringing these things to light. It's like I've been getting out the structure dealing with the clerks, where the clerk can and cannot do. And that's why when you do your instruments, I suggest to you, put that in, because in that way, when the clerk doesn't file the paperwork, doesn't do that, then you file the criminal charges not only in her own department. And this is what I'm trying to get people to comprehend, that when you file a criminal complaint, you have to file it with the Secretary of State, the State Attorney General, state and federal government. So you want to make sure your paperwork is filed in all and above. If it's filed all and above, Everybody's covered in one shot. You don't have to go backwards. And that's the point that we're trying to set ourselves up in these positions to not go backwards. So that's the whole point about this, education and knowledge. So we're doing this to protect the bloodline. And that is the one thing that it comes down to it. It's like, I want to get into this point, State versus Manual 28USC3002. The term citizen. And you got to remember, it does get into the capital C and the lower C. And term citizen by the federal government is the lower C. That means you are a subject in common law. And everybody keeps going, oh, common law. What is common law? Who's common law? Why is there common law? Who's the common law for? See, that's the one thing that you've got to start analyzing these things and questioning these things. Okay, change in phase results in the change in government. The term citizen. So, in other words, if you were a lower C citizen under the 14th Amendment, was never ratified, never passed. Couldn't have been passed and ratified, but it was passed by the Senate in the House under administrative rule, because remember that was a administrative court, not a de facto. It wasn't a Constitution court when the 14th Amendment went through. So that is Jones versus Toomer case, 89FSUP1226. The Privileges and Immunities Clause. Oh, you're going to love this. Of the 14th Amendment. Protects very few rights. Because if neither incorporate of the Bill of Rights nor protects all the individual citizens. Remember, citizens is a low C citizen in this court case. See, it's reading, when you read these court cases, it's catching the low C or the large C, or how the Supreme Court is written in capital letters or supreme in small letters and the small C, a large C in the court in small letters. See, when you start defining what the court means, the de facto court compares to a constitution court. See, it is, once you start realizing and learning how to do this, because, you know, it comes down to a citizen is an artificial person, doesn't exist. But a citizen could be put out of his misery. I mean, you know, it's like, you know, when I went through my heart issues and everything, they're like, well, you know, do you want us to paddle you? Do you want us to give you heart treatments? Do you want us to do shit? Yeah, I want you to keep me alive. But if I'm brain dead, you know, I mean, who wants to be brain dead and be there and not know anything? I mean, nobody would want to be that way. Or could you imagine being caught in your body where you can see everything going around you, but you can't talk and speak? I mean, the trauma that
I can think
Go
of
ahead.
one. I can think of one person who would actually want you to be brain dead. I think Kate Brown would.
Yeah, I think Kate Brown has a lot of things for me. I've been thinking about her and on her tail, I don't know, for the last 15 years. I'm still amazed, you know, with the election and all these inflated taxes. And if once they get this thing done on I-5 and 205 and 405, you people are going to be screwed if you're traveling. Because you're looking at 20 miles of stop-and-go traffic. You know, you got to realize that. 20 miles of stop-and-go traffic. That's like in California, you know, go across the Golden Gate Bridge. I think it's like $10 to go across the bridge now. What happened to all the money that was paid into that thing for the last 70 years? Where's the money? See, that's the one thing. All these nonprofits, remember, Golden Gate Bridge is nonprofit too. Like all these religions and churches are all nonprofit. Where is the so-called dividends or chip numbers, or because money is just existence. So it could be chips, dinars, or ducats, whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, all it is a computer chip on the structure. So, I mean, and that's the one thing that people, we've got to stand up and do this. Stand up when you put your instruments together, putting this stuff together. I mean, we're watching these politicians that are screwing us over, and, we've got these things that are going after us. And so when these media are controlling our thoughts and our thinking and how we are to do things, we've got to do it. It's like, I keep trying to explain to people. When you file your paperwork, you put it in. If you haven't got a response in so many days, you have to respond back to them and the other appropriate channels. It's up to we, the people, to keep them on their toes. It's our responsibility to keep them on their toes. So, and I know I got the stuff out to the Right to Travel dealing with Dexter Johnson. We will get the rest of that stuff published. Okay, and so it is very important to read what these men and women are saying, and what departments they are working in. It is so important that you know what departments these people are working in. And reading is like Dexter Johnson stood up for the people. And I watched Dexter get attacked by people when he stood up for people, and people didn't comprehend what he was standing up for. I mean, I've been around Dexter. I mean, it's like, it's watching these things. That is the whole point, is watching these things, how they work. And once you start putting these things together, and don't forget, the other point is, okay, I got the stuff on Social Security. Now, Social Security Children's Protection Act. Okay, I request you to read that. Because when they're going after your Social Security number for your children for schools and stuff, then we'll get these other ones posted up that I'm going to be messaging over to the producer. So we'll get this stuff posted up on the Children's Protection Act on Social Security stuff, numbers. It's so important that you read this stuff, so that way you're not only educating yourself, you're educating the children around you, you're educating the people around you, so you know this. I've had people say, well, why should I do that? What's the difference? What is that going to do for me? And it's like, once people stop realizing it's not all about me, and start caring about others, then all of a sudden others start caring about others. Isn't that interesting how that works? And then all of a sudden you're going to have all these religious people saying, see, we told you the Bible worked. So it's crazy, crazy, crazy. And the other point, too, is like when it comes to your all caps letters. Well, I've just sent something to the producer on that here recently to have this stuff put up. So we'll have this other information. I'm sending him the Social Security stuff right now on the Children's Protection Act. That's why it's so important that you read these things. Because if you got children, it's your responsibility to read them. So once you read them, and then you know what's going on. And it works so wonderful once you put the pieces together and comprehend how all this stuff works. Social Security and all this stuff works. It really works wonders. And then that way, when you're doing your paperwork, you're sending it in, you're not going to be screwed with. See, everybody keeps going, the government screws with me all the time. I mean, I send in paperwork that I'm watching going through. But see, the thing is, there is no such thing as a class action lawsuit. All right? Because it has to be the injured party, man or woman. Now, they do class actions to get it through the system so it looks good. But here's a perfect example. We had a multi-million-dollar lawsuit on smokers. How come no smokers today get anything from that money? How come when you go in and if you got lung cancer, how come your medical treatment is not 100% covered? Where's that tax that they put that 60 cents tax on cigarettes for that medical coverage? Oh, that's right. It didn't go for that. It went for tobacco education. So that way they can fund somebody else's little high school projects. You know, oh, we're going to put this $200 so that way it cost us $80,000 to get this $200 to the school, but we're going to let the kids speak out on this. We're going to let the kids bring this up. That's a great chore they do, and the psychological structure they do on it is great. It's ratifying and scary when you think about it. They're getting away with this shit. So, and that's the one thing that people keep saying, that Social Security is a government agency. It's a private corporation. Yes, it is. William Jefferson Clinton didn't turn it into effect until 1997. Prior to that, if you're born and you got a Social Security card, as long as you file it right, do that stuff, it's under protection. The money, the House and Senate cannot take money out of it. The money, what they're taking out of it, that hits the media, is going to the Queen of England, and the House and Senate are spreading it amongst their own pockets. Will they tell you the truth? No, they're not going to tell you the truth because they don't want you to know the truth. Because if you knew the truth that was going on around them, you wouldn't tolerate it. See? And that's the beauty of all this stuff. They know they're getting away with this stuff. They know that you're allowing them to get away with it. And they know it. So who cares? So anyhow, with that one, I'm going to open up the floor. Let's get some other commentary.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody got anything else to say? Bring something else? Okay. So I guess go ahead. Okay. Anyhow, there's more information coming out on the Twin Towers. That is good to see because there's no way physically those buildings could have fallen down in the demolition design that they actually fell down and said that, oh, a plane went in. Number one, it had to have been a hologram. I got to start believing that one because where's the engine? You know, there's nothing. You're trying to tell me that plane hit that building and went through all that metal work? There's no way it could have went through that building and blew up the other side of the building. There's no way. That steel that it was done, there's no way that plane, the tail fuselage should have been on the ground outside of that building. So, I mean, that's like the other one that fell in the center of the ground. It disappeared in the middle of the ground. There's no way a plane is going to fall and disintegrate in the ground. There's no way that the Pentagon got hit and there's no plane there. So it just amazes me how people will argue with you on things that they have to have some belief. They can't believe in the truth because they believed in truth, then they had to admit to the lies, the bullshit, the fairy tale, tooth fairy, Christmas, all that. Oh, we can't do that. We can't tell the truth of it. So with that, if nobody's got nothing to say this evening, then we'll just call it an evening and we'll pass it on that way. So with that, I will say, may the Great Spirit bless you. May the Mother Earth provide for you, look over you, and may the Creator protect us all.
All right. Thank you very much, Ed. Remember, everybody, we, as our disclaimers say, and I put it up every once in a while, we are not attorneys, lawyers, financial advisors, judges, tax expert, or claim to be experts in anything except bullshitting. We're pretty damn good at that. But we do research, and we do offer this information freely. And whatever you do with this information that we offer freely, you take liability for whatever actions you do with the information. We hold no liability for any actions you take with this information. And remember, we're regular living men and women that have just learned and researched. We're not anything special. Hell, I had no clue. I stayed out of politics most of my life. A few things happened, and I started learning, and I started researching, and like I said, over and over again, start with a cornerstone, something simple, like the straw man account. Learn everything you can from that, and then expand on it. Build yourself a fort of knowledge from one cornerstone. So catch us next Saturday with Disclaimers with Ed. It is currently Sunday, February 24th, 2019. It is 5:57 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll catch you next Saturday.